Welcome to another episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. I'm your host, Tamiko Lowry, affectionately called by many the Empowering Diva. In today's episode, I'll be chatting with Ann Hill, the Fractional COO and owner of Hilltop Operations and Consulting. Ann spent over 15 years in the physical therapy field, where she thrived at managing the operations side of the business, along with supporting multiple other rehabilitation managers in the area. She quickly realized how much of a correlation there was between the health of a person and the health of a business. Ann went on to create Hilltop Virtual Solutions, an agency dedicated to streamlining the way companies run. Hilltop Virtual Solutions covers it all, from hiring and training new employees to establishing a solid and long-lasting foundation. All right, everyone. So you have already heard her amazing bio. So let's go ahead and dive into our powerful conversation with Ann Hill. Ann, welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great today.
Wonderful. Well, I am really excited to dive into this conversation with you to really talk about all the amazing things that you're doing as it relates to helping people to streamline their businesses. And so the reason why I love this topic is because I actually have a life coach training and certification program. And one of the things that I always talk to my coaches about is making sure, that they're streamlining everything, that they have all their workflows and their processes and all that stuff in place. I'm not the expert at that. I'm the expert at teaching people how to coach. And so people like you, I'm grateful for, because you get to help us with, all of the workflows and those things that make our lives much easier. And so let me just say, first of all, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And so just tell us a little bit about your brand as an operations and agency strategist. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so my business I've had for about 3 years, and it has evolved over the years to where I've really realized more of what it is that I do with the clients that I work with. I started off in the online space and what I classified as kind of a general VA, and then went through a few different programs, went through and learned a lot about both business in general and online business. And then also accidentally grew an agency as I was going through all of this. And so I've gotten a lot of experience in what I have done with the businesses I've worked with. And then also, like I mentioned, gotten a few certifications that help me to really hone in and define more of that operations and agency strategist side of it. So we really focus on the back end of the business. There's a lot of push, especially with businesses and growing businesses, in the marketing side, in the sales side, because you need to be working with clients in order to have a business. You need to be getting paid for it. And but to continue to run a successful business, you really have to have some of, like you were mentioning, that back end side, having some of the processes, having workflows, and having an understanding of what it is that you do with the clients that you do and how you get the results that you get with them. And a lot of that comes from that operations side. So it can be looking at the people, looking at the processes that you have. It can be looking at the HR side. It can be looking at where you were mentioning the workflows, that sort of stuff. And then on the agency side specifically, there is a side of starting to turn your team members as you're bringing them on and turning them more client facing. And so that's where on that agency side, for people looking to grow and really what I have seen is kind of be limitless with regard to a top revenue stream and a top revenue cap, and have a team that you're working with that are really coming in and helping others too.
Wow, that's good. That's good info. And so your company is Hilltop Virtual Solutions. And so most of this is run under Hilltop Virtual Solutions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us, like, who would your target audience be? I'm assuming, I know it's businesses, but as you were speaking, I kind of feel like it doesn't really have to be the entrepreneur, because at first I'm thinking entrepreneurship, but it can also be how to run an actual business, like on the corporate side as well. So like, who would be your target audience? Who would need your services?
Yeah, so we do focus on definitely small businesses, and more of the entrepreneur is really who we focus on. They are service based businesses though, so they tend to be people that really have a passion for doing more of the done for you type services with the clients that they work with, and they typically are business owners also that are just ready to up level. They're looking to grow, whether that's bringing the team members on and starting to figure out what those processes are, and really figure out in a lot more depth and detail as to what it is they do and why they do it and how they're successful in it, and taking that and then training team members in basically being able to replicate that. Sometimes it is like I was mentioning with the agency where it's starting to bring team members on to turn them client facing, and sometimes it is just building that team that needs to help support the business owner.
Yes, yes. And we definitely all need a team. I remember trying to do everything myself, and I was spending so much time, I guess you could say, working in the business and not on the business. I think I'm saying that
Yeah. Yeah.
right. Instead of focusing on clients, I'm, trying to get the email system going and all of these funnels and just really spending a lot of time on that until I learned, hey, I believe in hiring my weakness at this point,
Yeah.
and building a team. But one thing that you said it twice. You talked about team members, client facing. And so, those who don't know what that means, what does it mean to be client facing?
So, typically in especially in the online space, when I see businesses that are first starting to build, similar to what you were mentioning with your experience, where the business owner is wearing all the hats. They're wearing the hat of being the service provider. They're wearing the hat of being the accountant. They're wearing the hat of being the marketer. They're wearing the hat of everything. And as you are building a business, again, as you had mentioned, there are times when you're bringing team members in. Sometimes you're bringing team members in that are directly under you, and you typically have them continuing to answer to you. And then there's other times, depending on how big and what type of business it is. I tend to see it a lot in like marketing agencies where they are building a business, and then they start to bring on additional team members that will not deal, but will handle direct communication with the client. So like if it's an ad agency, there might be an account manager. That account manager, and not the business owner, is the one that starts to have all the communication with the client instead of the business owner being the one that's having that direct communication. It's not to say that the business owner isn't still involved. It's just that, again, the hats that the business owner and that entrepreneur is wearing start to shift and start to change as the business grows.
Yes. So that sounds amazing, right? But then I have this backup question then, because if you're a person like me, like some of us are just control freaks, right? You want to kind of control everything what's happening in your business. And so, how do you know what's going on in your business when you start delegating these tasks to other people? Like, how can you, uh, I don't want to say micromanage, but it is almost like micromanaging. And I struggle with that. So, you're delegating these tasks to other people. How do I know what's going on in the business, once I do this?
Yeah. So what you're kind of mentioning there, and what you're trying to figure out there, is something that's very common, as a challenge that a lot of business owners have, where they want to manage somebody, but they don't want to micromanage them. Kind of like you were mentioning there, they want the business owner to still know what's going on in the business. They want the team members to be able to support the business owner, but they're struggling in how to have that balance and still have that understanding, both as the business owner, making sure that the product or the service that's being provided matches what it is that they've always had. As most business owners, including myself, like, my business is my baby. Like, I created it and I want to see it continue to succeed. I want to continue to have it have the reputation that I've established and built for myself so far. And so, when I'm bringing team members on, there's a few things that you really want to pay attention to when you're bringing the team members on. In particular, one being, that you have a good understanding yourself as a business owner as to what your company and values are, and what your company culture is, and how you want that to look as you continue to grow. That's an area that, as the business owner, we have look internally and really figure some of those things out before we're bringing team members on.
Mhm.
And then we want to make sure that when those team members come on, that they match those same sort of, values and culture that we want to see in our business. Some of the skill sets can be taught. Some of them unite. Sometimes you need to have kind of a foundational understanding and awareness when you're bringing on team members. But sometimes, you can teach somebody a lot, and those values in the culture, though, are not necessarily something that you can teach. So that's where that side is really important, that you make sure that that is a match and that it blends well with your business and what you've created. And then the second part of that is looking at the processes, looking at how it is that you do what you do. And then having kind of this overarching framework that you're giving the person to take on, but allowing them to still kind of build it and make it their own as well in your business. I a lot of times will focus on the outcome of what it is that I'm looking for when I'm delegating something out to a team member, more than the specific, like 1, 2, 3, and then under number 1A, 1B, 1C. Like, I try to focus a little bit more of, okay, these are the things that I do. This is how I do it. And then this is the outcome that I want to see from that team member. And as I give them a little bit more of that ownership and give them a little bit more of the ability to turn it into the process and the system and how they would do it, they tend to thrive in that sort of a setup a little bit more.
That's good. I feel like you're speaking directly to me because I that I've implemented some of these things and some I have not. And
Well, and
again, no,
yeah,
go
and
ahead.
I can tell you one example of something. It's not specifically business related, but this comes into play. Delegating comes into play in a lot of different ways. But I mean, when my husband and I first got married, I lived alone prior to getting married. He lived alone prior to getting married, and so then you hear stories of couples, when they first live and have to kind of figure out how to then live together.
Mhm.
And there were times with cleaning that I tend to be a little bit more of a control freak, and I tend to be the one that, I will come in and be like, well, you vacuumed, but you didn't vacuum well enough. Like, it wasn't good enough. And so we realized very quickly that if I was like, we'd have our chore lists and stuff. And if I was in the house when he was doing his stuff, like, it didn't work well, because I wanted to oversee how he was doing it and tell him he was doing it wrong. But if I was able to, do something else or be out of the house when he was doing those things, the task in and of itself still got done. The house still got cleaned, but we didn't have the fight. We didn't have the micromanaging that I was doing previously, and some of those sort of things. So it's like, it's looking at that and going, okay, so I just need to still give the guide. My husband, I didn't necessarily have to give the guidance for how to vacuum, but like with a team member, I'm going to be giving a little bit of the guidance there, but then I need to let them explore and let them figure it out a little bit on their own, as long as the outcome that I'm looking for is still getting done.
That's good. And that's a really good analogy. And I can actually relate to that, living alone and then getting married. He had been living alone for years. And then here I come. And it's so funny because he had two birds, I had a dog, and we're just coming together, you know, and really just trying to balance and all that stuff. So that was a really good analogy. And so I just said the word balance, and you mentioned balance earlier. So I'm like a self-care fanatic. I think it's really important that we create some type of balance when it comes to a work-life balance, because sometimes when we're business owners, we put everything into our business and we don't really have that work-life balance that we need. And so how can we balance our personal and professional life? And I think some of the things you're mentioning can help with balance. And so I just want you to kind of expound on that a little bit more, balancing your personal life and professional life.
Yeah, so I kind of have I've had varied impressions and kind of perspectives on this as I've, grown my business over the last few years. I think that there's this idea of, like, truly a scale of balancing it and it being completely 50-50. And I don't feel like that is necessarily a great way to approach the quote unquote work life balance that everybody always talks about. I feel like there are times and seasons where one thing is going to end up taking a little bit more of a precedence and a priority than others. I feel like there has to be, if I were to look over a quarter or over a year time frame, then yeah, there probably needs to be a little bit of an average of that 50-50 balance for, or potentially less than that, depending on which side you really want to weigh more heavily
Mhm.
on in your life and how you're living, the type of business that you want to have and that sort of stuff. There does need to be an understanding of, if my goal is to be at this 50-50 point, then over a time frame, yes, having that kind of average out at 50-50 would be great, and is important to make sure that you're able to do that. But if I look at day to day, or if I even look over the span of a week, there definitely have been times when there needs to be more of a focus on my business, or a focus more on my family and my personal life. But I don't feel like it's always going to be sitting at that 50-50 mark. I think that having the team to support your business definitely helps you be out of your business more. But I also think, having the support in the family, and potentially even outsourcing, personal things, like outsourcing the lawn care, outsourcing the grocery shopping, outsourcing the cleaning, that sort of stuff. There's ways that you can potentially start to outsource even in your personal life that can help you feel like you have a little bit more of that balance also.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, especially on the outsourcing piece. I think the way life is set up now with technology, it's so easy to outsource. Like, on Mondays, I love to do Instacart. So, while I'm working, I might take a quick break and order my groceries from Instacart so that they can be delivered to me and I don't have to, you know, frantically run out and go grab groceries. So we have things like Instacart and
Yeah.
TaskRabbit where you can have someone come clean a room or come wash your clothes or things of that nature. So technology makes it so much easier for us to balance nowadays.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And so everything that you've talked about has been really motivational. It's definitely something, that we all need in our businesses. What is the motivation behind what you do? Like, how did you get to this point?
Yeah, so my background prior to starting my business, it was as a physical therapist, and I was a rehab manager for about 10 or so years. And I found that even in the healthcare industry, like I just had the desire to help people. And what I was doing as a therapist, I was helping them to regain their function, to regain their ability to improve in a variety of different ways. And I found that even going into business, a lot of what I'm still looking to do is help the businesses essentially regain that function and regain the success, versus it being specifically the people that I was working with in the therapy space. It's kind of just been a passion that I've had, just to be able to help and help people be successful and help people succeed, and not let them feel like they are stuck in a certain
Mhm.
situation or in a certain circumstance, but that there is a way, to kind of diagnose and work around and problem solve and still return back to a new, or potentially grow into a better version of what they have, and in a better version of what they're building.
Yeah, I think, when we're motivated by the desire to help or to serve people, I just totally believe that we're so much more successful because our success comes from being a servant, being able to help people and being able to serve and see them, like you said, make it to their next level or live in their full potential. And so I love that you said that the desire to help people because that's what living the empowered life is all about. And not only empowering yourself, but, being able to empower other people as well. So
Yeah.
I love that you said that. And so there's a quote that I saw on your website, and it says, the key to your success is in the profits, people, and processes. Can you expound on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I would say I kind of joke around with people and will tell them that I focus on the three P's: people, processes, and profit. And that's really what I focus on with the clients that I work with. And to break it down even more, is that profit side, is, I think I had mentioned it a little bit earlier, like having money coming in your business and being profitable is how you have a successful business. And you're not necessarily just surviving and scraping by, but you're actually continuing to bring in profit. As you bring on team members, though, and on that people side, it does tend to eat into the profits a bit. And so, as you are bringing on team members, it's a making sure that you are aware of some of those balances and making sure that you're aware of what those numbers look like in your business, and that things are working out the way that you're expecting them to. The people are also going to help you to not be stuck in the weeds and not be stuck in the business so much, but really help the business owner to really start to step more into that higher level development of their business, and making sure that it's growing in the way that they want it to grow. And then the processes come into play, because as you bring on team members, you need to make sure that you're still getting those same results, and that the systems and the frameworks and the strategies of what you do and what you did as a solo business owner, and as a solopreneur, that those same sort of results are what your clients are getting, whether it's you specifically doing it or whether it might be, three other team members that are involved in it instead. So, you just want to make sure that those processes are built out in a way that it does, become a repeatable way for the business to still grow, without the business owner specifically being in it.
Hmm. That's what I love about processes. It's really like just rinse and repeat once you have
Yeah.
a good process going. So I love it. The three P's: profits, people, and processes. And so, and you have a free gift. I think people are going to actually love this free gift, the hiring playbook. So tell us about the hiring playbook and how can we get a copy?
Yeah, so this is on my website, and the address for that, or the URL, is hilltopoperations.com. And on there is a free hiring playbook. And what this does is it goes through the framework of really getting started with the hiring process. It talks about what to put in job descriptions. It talks about, a few steps to make sure that you're putting in place, as you're going through that process and as you're figuring out who that first person is or who that next hire needs to be in your business. And then it also goes through some interview questions that you can ask, and kind of going through more of that process as to what to know, what to make sure that you're checking in on. Gives you a few different things that you may not think about with those questions too, along with some of the kind of behind the scenes thought process as to why those questions would be important and what to pay attention to in the answers that people give you.
That's good. That's good. So the hiring playbook, you can grab your copy at hilltopoperations.com. So, and what's next for you? And tell us like what's next for you in your career and how can our listeners connect with you outside of the podcast?
Yeah, so definitely on my website, there is a spot to book a free strategy session. Also, if anybody is looking for, even just to connect and chat a little bit, and then also the platform that I typically use social media wise is LinkedIn. It's just Ann Hill there. And then, for what is next for me, I am actually putting together a program that is going to go through some of the teaching of taking somebody from solopreneur to, agency owner, and successful agency owner at that. So we'll dive into some of those processes, some of the back end of growing a successful agency, and then we'll also dive a lot more deeper into the, process of hiring and what that looks like as you're building out your team to help support your agency.
I love that. Solopreneur to agency owner. That sounds like it's going to be really awesome. So, we've talked about a lot of things. I've taken a lot of notes, but I do want to make sure you have the opportunity to share everything that was on your heart. And so, do you have a final thought or something inspirational you want to share, or just, a final thought for the audience?
Yeah, so I definitely would say one of the big things as you are, that solopreneur, or as you're growing a business, and as you're really working through everything and the challenges that go with being a business owner, um, taking action is definitely one of the big things that you just want to make sure that you're doing, even if it's that imperfect action. And then, the a lot of the biggest growth, whether it's personal or professional growth, happens in that messy middle. So, when you feel like you're stuck in the weeds, you very likely may be at that time, but know that that messy middle is really where you're gonna make some tremendous, changes, and make some tremendous growth in your business just by taking that action.
I love it. Take action, even if it's imperfect action. I love that. And thank you so much for sharing with us today. I can't wait to get this information out, and I look forward to supporting you and possibly, doing some type of collaboration in the future. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great chatting.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. I hope that you enjoyed my amazing conversation with Ann Hill and that you are able to draw some inspiration as you continue your journey of living an empowered life. And remember, your process is what determines the weight of your journey. Submit to your process so that your journey can be great.